Hey, everybody, Scoots, and I need your attention because we're going to be spending the whole night together. If you're an all-night listener, right? You're going to be listening to me when you go to bed, at 2 a.m., at 4 a.m., at 6 a.m. You listen to episode after episode after episode, but I need your attention. All-night listeners, the future of the show really is in your corner, and we're in the middle of this drive that we're only a third of the way through it to get more all-night listeners to support the show. And maybe you're one of them, because John R. said, I had no idea. I now realize I had inadvertently placed myself in a side channel where I just didn't get the message. I've been one of those people who meant to support the show but never did. I'm doing my part now. And so Sleep With Me keeps you company all night long. Like, maybe you're the one I'm trying to get through to. Maybe you're the only one listening and paying attention, the only all-night listener paying attention right now. Can you support the show at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus? Will you support the show at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus? If you're saying, Scoots, I can't afford to do it. Scoots, I chose, I am an all-night listener, but I don't support podcasts. Well, if you're one of those two groups, just help me root that there is someone listening, that person is hearing me right now. Now, maybe you're that person, or maybe you're rooting that they're out there. I'm an all-night listener, too. I need this show. 8 hours a night, I need it. And I need somebody out there to support it. It's changed my life. And I hope somebody that listens all night long like I do supports it right now. So if you're the person we're rooting for, you're hearing me like John did for the first time, that's okay. All you need to do is go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus and sign up right now. Thanks.
This show is supported by Odoo. When you buy business software from lots of vendors, the costs add up and it gets complicated and confusing. Odoo solves this. It's a single company that sells a suite of enterprise apps that handles everything from accounting to inventory to sales. Odoo is all connected on a single platform in a simple and affordable way. You can save money without missing out on the features you need. Check out Odoo at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary, it's time for the podcaster who listens to the weekend. You know I love my pop music, and I'm here to bring you the feel of the weekend. You know, some smoothified pop music, but more that feel of the weekend on weeknights, so you can rest, you can get comfortable. And you could wonder what I'm talking about, because if you're wondering that, you're in the right place, because it's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. Hey, everybody, it's Scoots here, and I know you might be getting ready. You're getting in bed, you're getting comfortable. If you fall asleep fast, it's critical you listen. If you fall asleep fast, this show's kind of designed to put people to sleep over a 20 or 30-minute period, but that's great. You're an exception to the rule. You fall asleep fast. That is awesome. But we need people who fall asleep fast to support the show. There's just no other way for us to pay the bills. And I don't know if you're the one I'm trying to get through to that's listening to me, that's hearing me right now for the first time, you're making that connection. Holy cow, I fall asleep in 5 minutes. I never thought about what it takes to make this show. I never thought about that it needs my support. Or maybe you're one of the people rooting for that person. Man, I hope that person's out there that's going to support the show, because it makes my life better. I just can't support the show. But I know there's someone out there who is. Like Tiffany Y, who said, just because you could get something for free doesn't mean you should. I know if I have trouble sleeping, I just have to listen. I'll be out in no time. That's definitely worth a few dollars a month. I'm pretty sure if you try it out and you fall asleep fast, you're going to have a great experience. And you could do that at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. But like I said, if you're not in a place to support the show right now, you've decided you're not going to support the show, then root with me. Is that fall asleep fast listener listening and hearing me right now? We just happen to catch you and we're rooting for you. Root for them together, because we need your support. Are you hearing us cheer for you and you say, wait, no, that is me. That is me. Just like Tiffany. I had no idea. Of course I want to support the show. It's changed my life so much for the better. So if you're that person, you'll be the hero, the heroine, the champion we're looking for, that we're rooting for, because you're not alone. We're all rooting for one another together here in the deep dark night. Thanks. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? It's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake. So it could be thoughts you're thinking about, thoughts, things on your mind, feelings, like any emotions coming up for you, physical sensations. It could be anything, a lot of different stuff. It's going, that's your stuff. Holy cow, it's always there. Yeah, and sometimes it's, stuffed up in there. So whatever it is that's keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off of that. And the way I'm going to do it is I got this nice, safe place all picked out. It's all set aside for you. You can pick out your part of the safe place. And you don't even have to pick it out, actually. You could just lie there and be like, yeah, I'm somewhere over there. Can you imagine that? That could be a new kind of sleepy movers. Now, just hear me out. It's probably the wrong time to talk about this, so I'll try to come back to it. Sleepy movers, because I better explain what the podcast is to the newest listeners. Welcome. What I'm also going to do, in addition to taking this safe place and letting you have me arrange it for you, is I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. I'm going to go off topic. Oh boy, I'll be off topic, and then I'll be back on topic, and then I'll be off topic again. Superfluous, what did I say? Pointless meanders, superfluous dialogue, extra words, sleepy moves. The only moves I got are sleep. You say all those moves. Scoots, so you've been working on your moves, huh? Oh boy, have I. Oh yeah, Scoots has got moves. The moves that put you to sleep. And I said, well, those moves weren't intended to put anybody to sleep. Those were supposed to be my, if I had my fancy moves, my hot moves, my smooth moves. None of those put you to sleep too. Oh boy. What's pointless meanders? All to take your mind off of stuff and be here actually to keep you company while you fall asleep. Now, if you're new, a couple of things to know. One, I'm glad you're here. Two is this podcast normally takes 2 or 3 tries to get used to. A recent reviewer said somewhere between 1 and 4 times. Give it 1 or 4 tries. And the reason for that, one is if you're listening to a sleep podcast, you're probably naturally skeptical and doubtful about it. You say, what is this you're getting me into here? Or what are you really up to? So there's that, which is totally normal. If you're doubtful or skeptical, I'm a skeptic most of the time, except when I'm that other thing, gullible. I guess most of the time I'm gullible. But the rest of the time, I'm skeptical because I'm so gullible. Talk about a paradox. I've been working my whole life to try to get out of that. Maybe today's the day. I say, you know what, I'm going to be open-minded, but with, limits. I guess that's what I'm striving for. So there's a problem solved. Maybe, but, but you're here. I'm here to help you fall asleep. So if you're doubtful or you're not sure, this podcast is very different than everything out there. So give it a few tries and just see how it goes. I will tell you this. What was I going to tell you? I forgot. So if you're new, a couple of things to know, other than this podcast is strange. One, this is a podcast you don't really listen to. You kind of barely listen. And you kind of do that by just kind of saying, okay, I'm going to pay attention here for a few minutes and see how it goes. Well, he's kind of not talking about anything. Maybe I don't have to pay. So you kind of let it bounce off your ears or let me kind of go out of focus. Just kind of barely listen. Kind of like this moving sleep company I'm coming up with next. So there's that. So this is a podcast, the one podcast you don't listen to. The other thing is this is a sleep podcast, but believe it or not, it's more here to be here while you fall asleep and to take your mind off of stuff And my job is to walk at your side and kind of distract you while you fall asleep or while you drift off. I guess another part of my job is to ease you into bedtime, which kind of segues nicely into the other thing that new listeners can find a little bit off-putting, I guess would be one way to say it, is the structure of the show. Show starts off with a greeting, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary, because I'm so happy that all you are here, and I want you to feel acknowledged and seen and know that your sleep is important to me. Then we go into business, and the business is what enables us to bring you the podcast for free, so that's cool. And then after the business, around 6 or 8 minutes into the show, we go into the intro, and that's where I ease you into bedtime. And this could throw some people off because the intro's it goes from around minute 6 or 8 to around minute 20 or 22-ish. And when I say ish, I mean a pretty, I always shoot for to shut the recorder off at 18 minutes. But you never know what'll happen, where my meanders will take us. Nowhere, mostly, but on a journey to nowhere. So sorry, I went off to, so the intro, the whole idea of the intro is it's really long. So initially you say, what do you mean the intro is 18 minutes long? That doesn't really make any sense. And I'd say exactamundo, as Stefan says. But what the purpose of the intro serves is, I'm laughing just because my words were out of order there. And if my words were a machine, it'd always say out of order. You'd say, is that out of order sign because your words don't work? Your word machine doesn't work? No, it's just a heads up that any words coming out of my word machine will be out of order. So the intro is so long and meandering. The show has an intro to greet you and to kind of let new listeners know what's coming up and what to expect. It also kind of gives you an overview of what the show will be like overall. But also for regular listeners, believe it or not, 98% of regular listeners listen to the intro or fall asleep as the intro goes on because it's part of their bedtime routine. It's part of their wind down. Because if you're listening to the show, you've probably faced some kind of sleep issue before. And for most of us, it hasn't been an easy thing to fix. And we've tried the easy stuff or the magic stuff or, the stuff that you pay money for. And none of that really has worked well, or at least hasn't worked instantly. Anything that's been part of a slow and steady thing usually works better. And so the intro is kind of that in a microcosm. It's a slow and steady journey into bedtime. It's a slow wind down. So some listeners, if you become a regular listener, some listeners start it before they get into bed as they're getting ready for bed, either on their sleep phones or their headphones, or there's just their phone in their pocket or their smart speaker. And you don't even have to be in the same room as me to, not listen to me. That's how convenient this podcast is. You could say, well, I can almost hear Scoots down the hall. And, just barely hear him over brushing my teeth and washing my face, doing my skincare routine. And then I'm going to balm my elbows, kiss my shoulders, maybe, give my biceps a little pecky poo. And I can almost hear him before that smooching, between the smooches on my biceps. And then some listeners start the podcast as they get into bed and start their wind down routine or their bedtime routine. And so the intro just kind of eases you into bedtime. Then after the intro will be business. That's just kind of podcast structure. Then there's a story. Tonight it'll be our first episode of our new episodically modular serial story, Otter Things. That's OTTERTHINGS. So that'll be fun. And it's going to be a nice story about otters and other, creatures that live together in the swamp. To talk about bedtime material. And then there'll be some thank yous at the end of the show to say goodnight. So that's the structure of the show. Those are the kind of things to know. But yeah, to come back to that image of the idea of the show is like, what if there was a moving service? This would be the moving service I would offer. So hear me out. Now, we would have to have a magic user on staff, or some powerful stuff, because you say, okay, so tell me about this sleepy movers. They say, okay, well, one, we're licensed and bonded, totally double licensed, double bonded, triple insured. So don't worry about that. We got all the accreditations. We even got an accreditation from the Roy G. Biv Institute, because Scoot invented that anyway. That's more for holiday lights, to make sure they follow the Roy G. Biv protocol. Anyways, so yeah, it's a moving service where you go to sleep and we move your stuff while you're sleeping. And you might say, including me, and we say, that is an offer in our package that, yeah, we'll move you and your bed. Totally, don't worry, we have all the technology to make it 100% totally, just totally dreamy and comfortable. And yeah, we do have a hyperbolic thing, so it's like if you're going across the country, totally, you could sleep for a few days if you like. Some people do it. That's just a bonus. They say, wow, I slept for a week too. And I moved, and I woke up, and everything was moved. And it's more, a lot of people think it's a gimmick, but the one thing we're known for is arranging stuff while you sleep. And now we work out a plan ahead of time, but we've also figured out a way to basically communicate with you while you're sleeping, to move your furniture and lamps and stuff around. And it kind of goes like that. You just say, no, over there. No, that's crooked, please. Okay, perfect. Okay. No, now let me see how that looks over there. Okay, turn it to the left. Okay, back to the right a little. Oh boy, that's good. Okay, now just fix the lampshade. No, fix a little bit more. Okay, great. Okay, wait, no, turn it back a little bit. Okay, good. Okay, now... No, wait, okay, push it back 1 inch. Oh, no, 4. Okay, good. All right, now over there, I want that vase moved over. Oh boy, So that's kind of how it goes. And believe it or not, it actually works. Now, again, we have a magic user on staff. And, we have lasers. A lot of it's laser-based, and... like technologies from alternative universes that we've acquired, and multiverses, transverse plane. We do a lot of the moving on the transverse plane, but you're going to be sleeping through all that anyway. And yeah, just go, and believe it or not, then it's stress free, because you don't even have to think. When you wake up, you say, okay, that's pretty much how I wanted it. And if you say, well, I'd like to move that back a little, you say, okay, we'll do it for you. Or you could go back to sleep and we'll do it. And it's taken some adoption, to get it on board. We can't tell anybody that we have a magic user anymore, or, only on this podcast, but other, our main marketing. Also, it's an imaginary service at this time. So that's when it's really working good, is when you imagine it. You say, oh boy. Yeah. Oh boy. Yep. No. Oh, okay. No, I want to you're going to put all my socks in the drawer. Great. Yeah, no, I like the ones, the tube socks go with my tube tops. Yep. Mm-hmm. And my Hanson DVDs, because I like to say tube top, tube top. Yeah, I know that's not that song is, but I always used to sing it that way when I had a tube top on and tube socks. Okay, good job. Thanks. And you can even tip us while you're asleep, and then you can recheck it when you're awake. You say, okay, well, 22% is, I'm going to lower it to 20, but you did a good job. So that's one of the services we're offering now. We're really happy and proud to be doing it in my imagination, and possibly yours. But I think one day it'll take off. I mean, once we get the magic user down, and, the transporting of you in your bed and all that parts, and the subconscious communication or effective subliminal communication. I don't know if that's what it is. because it's kind of like you're actively participating. So we're working on it. I mean, not really. I always just imagine. I say, well, hopefully my imagination will do the hard work, iron out all those things. And then years later, I'll say to my imagination, so how's the plan for that moving? I haven't worked on it. Okay, well, I'll imagine you did. And you say, agreed, good work. So that's another thing to expect during the show, a pointless meander like that. The last thing I'll tell you is the reason I make the show. One is because I've been there and I know how it feels in the deep, dark night, tossing and turning. And having trouble getting to sleep. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is I know you deserve a good night's sleep in a place of respite, a safe place where you can lie down and relax without the rigmarole of having to go to bed and, the non-fun part. Now, I can't promise to make bedtime fun. I can only promise to make it, not bad. You say, well, it's like not as bad as like when Scoots is there, going to bed's like, it's like that thing, not bad. So, that's why I make the show. You do deserve some rest. In the world, your world and our world will be a better place when you're rested. So if you're new, please give the show a few tries. It's free, so just see how it goes. And if it works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, check out sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you. But I'm glad you're here. I really work hard. I really yearn and strive, and I really want to help you fall asleep. So thanks again for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we're able to bring this podcast for free. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it the bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake. It could be thoughts you're thinking about, things on your mind. Things you're thinking about. Feelings, like any emotions coming up for you, or physical sensations, changes in time or temperature or routine. Any inside or outside, anything going on, whatever's keeping you awake, I'd like to help with that. And what I'm going to do is I got a safe place here. As I like to say, I'm smoothing it, I'm patting it, I'm rubbing it down, and I'm saying safe place. Just like I was a part of the East Coast family, but I'm a part of I'm coast to coast, pole to pole. Like in, whatever your longitude or latitude is, I'm coming to you with a safe place, longitudinally and latitudinally. I like that. I haven't used these kind of words before on the podcast. And the way it's going to get there is I'm going to send it I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones. So they're both creaky and dulcet, which kind of means like sweet or, pretty nice. Dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. I'm going to go off topic and bend, I'm going to be bending. My logic is circular or ovular. I guess it's not ovular. Here's a question I really don't know the answer to. Are there any ovular planets, or are planets only spheroids? Is an oval a spheroid? That's another one. I guess it would be a sphere. It'd be an oval. What's an ovaloid? And you'd say, I don't know, is that some sort of new breakfast cereal? Oh, yeah, that was a failed breakfast cereal by Ovaltine. What's Ovaltine? Great question. I believe my parents used to drink it. I know the kid from A Christmas Story drank it. I don't know. I think it's just chocolate milk, and I don't know what else. I don't know. Okay, well, maybe you should get some. Maybe I should. I don't know. Maybe has anybody ever taken the ad for Maybelline and said maybe it's Ovaltine, and then said ovoid, I guess that's it. Spheroid, ovoid. I think that's it. Ovaloid. The old ovaloid. That was that was the character on the what was the word? What was that drink? Ovaltine. The character on Ovaltine was the ovaloid. Had a whole backstory. I'm not familiar with it though because that was before my time. Doesn't answer my question about. I mean, I've seen asteroids that are like oval-esque or nearly ovular. Here's another possible biography I could write. Almost an oval, an android's story. The tales across the universe being almost an oval. Not selling that one either. So that's, so what am I doing? Oh, going off topic. I just did that. Sorry about that. If you're new, welcome. I'm glad you're here. That does happen a lot, but if you're new, let me give you some information, like it's close to right up front. I mean, like 10, 12 minutes into the show. That's usually when I give it out anyway. But if you're new and you're doubtful or you're skeptical or you're disoriented already, or maybe you're a little frowny faced, you're not sure if you like this, that's totally understandable. And you're in good company, because that's what almost every regular listener said when they first started listening to this show. The most common phrase is "what in the heck" that most listeners say when they listen to this podcast. So if you're doubtful or skeptical, totally legit, totally normal reaction. I wanted to acknowledge that. Also want to tell you, this is a podcast you don't really need to listen to. It's more listen to in an out-of-focus way, or in a way where you could almost barely hear me. You just got to get where I get to a mumble, at least at first. So you can listen to me whatever volume works. But just in reality, what I'm saying is don't pay me any mind. As my Nana always says, don't pay him any mind. So the podcast you don't need to listen to, one of the few podcasts you don't need to listen to. It's also a sleep podcast. It's not really here to put you to sleep. It's here to keep you company as you fall asleep. So a little bit different. I'm here to be your bedside, your bore friend, your bore bae, your bore bud, your bore bestie, your bore sib, your bore bruh, whatever it is. Your friend in the deep dark night, really. That's what I hope to. So podcasts you don't need to listen to, but there's no pressure to fall asleep. That's also why episodes are about an hour, is to give you plenty of time to drift off. So you have plenty of time to fall asleep, and I'll be here till the very end. If you can't sleep, I make this show just as much for you, or if you need to listen to it during the day, I'm here. These episodes are complete. They're also completely full of nonsense, but they are complete. So I just want you to know that. So podcasts you don't need to listen to, no pressure to fall asleep. Okay, structure is the other thing I'm supposed to cover. So this podcast is also a little bit different structurally. So a show starts off with a greeting. Then there's business. That's how we're able to bring you this podcast free twice a week. So I appreciate more of the regular listeners. If you're new, not important. And then there's an intro. So some people, the business throws off, and then new listeners, and then most new listeners get thrown off by the intro, because the intro is normally very efficient and to the point. Mine is not, because it's a sleep podcast, and two, it's just what has worked for the audience over the years. So the intro is really me talking about the podcast and trying to introduce it for somewhere around 6 minutes to 20 minutes. So anywhere between minute 4 and minute 8 to minute 12 to minute 22, I'm doing the intro. So why, you might ask, why do you just ramble on and on for 12 to 18 to 20 to 17 to 19 to 13 to 14 to 15 minutes about the introducing the podcast? I say, that's a great question, especially if you're new. Totally natural to wonder that. And I'm tempted when you say why to tell them that it's human nature. It's just a Scoot's nature to go off topic. So that's one reason why it's so long. But the real reason is because it eases you into bedtime. The whole idea of sleep with me, or the difference between sleep with me and a lot of other stuff, is that some stuff is more solution based, and maybe that's a shiny, fancy way of saying it works real darn good, or that it's the best. And I'd say sleep with me is not the best. It's just I'm not striving to be the best in anything. I'm just striving to be here on a regular basis and be pretty darn not bad. And so, but the whole idea of the intro is it eases you into bedtime. It gives you a long landing strip. Because I find that stuff that's supposed to work, that keeps me up longer, in my opinion. So that's why this show's different than that. Because I've found that when something's supposed to work or it's supposed to work fast, and then the pressure's on me as the listener, and I say, well, I don't know what my spirit animal is, and now I got to take it on a journey. I'm still trying to think of what my spirit animal is. Or I can't really pay attention and listen along, or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So sleep with me, or the intro, it's just something to kind of barely listen to. But the whole idea is that for regular listeners, the majority of them, well, a lot of people listen during the day now to relax to the intros, but then a lot of listeners start it before they get into bed, as they're getting ready for bed, or once they're in bed getting comfortable, so that it's just here while you wind down, to ease you into bedtime. I think I use that over and over again because that's really my goal. Now, the next thing you might want to know is, look, why would I do it? Or why do I make this sleep podcast? And I say, well, because I've been there and I know how it feels in the deep, dark night, tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep. I've had it all. Trouble getting back to sleep, the old falling asleep for 5 minutes and waking back up like you slept 8 hours. Not that I'm irritated with that one, but I am. So I've been there and I know how it feels. And the other thing is, I think that I really, truly believe that you deserve a good night's sleep. And I think that's important. That's what I was going to say. It's important for you to know that's really what I feel in my heart, is that you deserve a place of respite. And while I can't provide that for everybody, I hope I can provide it for you. I mean, the downside is this podcast just doesn't work for everybody. Probably doesn't even work for a majority of the people that listen. It just works for the people it works for. And I wish it worked for everybody, because you deserve a good night's sleep, and your life will be a little bit better, or a lot bit better, if you get the rest you deserve. So I don't know. Those are the reasons why I make the show. And so I don't know. So I went off topic. I was talking about ovoids, Ovaltine. Then something else came up in the middle of that, some part of the intro, but I already forgot what those other things were. And then at the beginning, I was thinking about, what did I say? I said, good. Did I say good night? And I forgot. I said, I don't put the good in night. I don't put the nigh in night, though, either. Good night, ladies. Welcome. I don't know. I thought I said something witty at the beginning, but I already forgot what it was. But yeah, you will notice as you listen to the show that my logic is ovular or ovoid. I guess it is ovoid. Spheroid, ovoid. Would it be an octoid, an 8-sided oid? How many oids did an oid, if an oid could oids? It's never been asked before. It should have, though. Oh, I think I thought of some words I never used on the podcast. I guess somebody will have to remind me what those words were. Speaking of space, though, tonight we'll be talking about TNG. Oh, I was supposed to talk about the structure of the show, and then I went off topic. So, yeah, the show starts off with the greeting business intro. Then there's business. That's just kind of structure of podcasting. Then there's a story. Tonight will be a recap of an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, recommended by my friend Lauren at This Is Love podcast, and another famous podcast that she makes with Phoebe. I'm excited to talk about that episode. But you might say, well, I don't watch Star Trek TNG, or I do watch, and I say, don't worry, it'll be They say, don't worry, this will be the most, it'll be an incomprehensible recap of an episode where you say, was that a fairy tale? That's a TV show. So I want you to know that. Let's go back, though, before I close out this intro. So octoid, I'm trying to think like so there's a spheroid means a sphere, rectoid. So yeah, there's that other roid I just thought of. That's why I'm laughing. So like, because I said rectoid, that sounds, why do they call it the other thing? They should call it a rectoid. It'd be very accurate. Squareoid. That doesn't sound like something, because it'd be so hard to say. Squaroid, that'd be a squirrel, like an oid, that's a squirrel. Spheroid. What's the difference between a sphere and a spheroid? Is it just really big, like interplanetary size? I wish I had data here to explain to me that. Like, it just sounds like inefficient. You say, well, that planet's a sphere. So, well, I guess that's hard. You say, I'm sorry, did you say it's here? No, it's a sphere, my dear. And you say, okay, Riker, keep it to yourself. And you say, no, spheroid. You say, okay, thanks for adding that oid in there. It helped clarify that you weren't saying it's here. And you say, but you say, how, you see any rectoids out there? Rectoid, octoid. Octoid may be like in a video game. If anybody's making a video game, put an octoid in there. It could be either a big boss or like a type of being. Quadroid. That would be a robot. That would be a droid. That's the first out of all the oids. That's the first droid. Quadroid. You say, well, I can do it to the power of 4. After that, I'm useless. And what other ones we got? Octoid. I don't know any of I wish I had more. I wish my geometry vocabulary was stronger, because we could have a field day with this. Does any juggler say that they say, well, I don't juggle balls. I juggle spheroids and octoids and a rectoid. That sounded funny just because I said like there was an E before the rectoid. I didn't realize that would, if you need a laugh later, like you're lying in bed and you're guffawing, it's because you're thinking of that when the juggler said, and the erectoid. You say, I don't know what that means, but it sounds very funny. Yeah, so I could see someone juggling. You say, well, the only person who could juggle that is someone that has a universal pot, and I said, well, okay, great. I'm sure there's jugglers in the divine realms. There's probably jugglers. Somebody's got to entertain them. But I'm not really here to entertain you. I'm here to take your mind off stuff, which I think that experiment probably proved that this podcast takes your mind off stuff, keeps you company as you drift off. It doesn't work for everybody, but the majority, this is like hundreds of thousands of people have said, give it a few tries before you give up on it. Because that just sounds, it sounds so mediocroid. That's Scooter, what award did you, I heard you won a big award. Yep, I won the mediocroid. It was given to me by Dan Aykroyd for my cheap rhyming schemes. I'm first winner of the International Mediocroid for achievements in mediocrity. But yeah, so really, I'm just here to keep you company as you drift off. I really appreciate you checking the show out. I'm glad you're here. I work very hard at your next drive, and I want to help you fall asleep. And here's a couple ways we're able to bring you this podcast free on a regular basis. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing? Trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep, or any other things, or early stuff, pre-dawn awakenings. I don't know what else to call it. That's what I'm dealing with, by the way. But I have a story of hope on it, though. So whatever's keeping you awake, whatever's got you awake. Now I got mixed up because I improv'd that part. Whatever, ladies, young boys, friends beyond the by, and time for sleeping podcast. Would up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep. Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. Also, sometimes we do a rehearsal right in the middle of the beginning of the episode. What I'm going to do the rest. Still not perfect. I like to lead by example. That will be somewhere. As you could hold me to that. You say, well, here sleeps Scoots. Still not perfect. Except for, anyway, we probably move on. So do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get him. I'll do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake. It could be thoughts you're thinking about, things on your mind. So thoughts, it could be feelings coming up about the past, present, or future, or just generalized feelings. You say, where did these come from? That does happen to me, particularly more so in the morning. Unrelated to dreams that I remembered. Sometimes I wake up and I say, where are these? Because sometimes I try to do some journaling. And I say, I have my own feelings about journaling too. Feelings about journaling. A journal about feelings about journaling. And maybe it'll be like script notes too. What was I saying though? But just see, where do these feelings come from? So it could be thoughts, feelings, physical sensations that you're having or experiencing, changes in routine, whatever's going on. I'm here to keep you company and take your mind off of stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night in an attempt to take your mind off stuff and establish a safe place. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, eventually they'll be soothing, creaky, dulcet tones. You say, oh, so creaky are those dulcet. They're more creaky than dulcet, but there is an underlying dulcetness to them. I wonder if dulcetness, is that a correct usage of like a construction of a word? Dulcetness. I don't know, but I don't know. My brain said, I don't know. And I said, okay, I'll say that then so listeners know. And they say, obviously you don't know Scoots. I say, yeah, that's what I'm here for. Like Po Buddy's Nerfic or whatever. Mine will just say, still not perfect. Okay, so, creaky dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. Holy cow, we've had a few. I'm going to go off topic. I'm going to get mixed up, and I'm going to take my time getting there. All to take your mind off stuff while you fall asleep. So a few things to know if you're new. One, this podcast does not work for everybody. But for 90% of listeners, it took 2 or 3 tries to get used to. You could just look at our reviews anywhere. It says, well, it took 2 or 3 tries. And then I realized the podcast made no sense, and that's why I love it. Or Scoots was, rarely he tries to get to a point, and he kind of barely gets there. So give it 2 or 3 tries if you wish. And the only reason I tell you that up front is because if you're skeptical or doubtful, that's totally normal. How many of us that are listening right now have been said, oh, this will totally work to put you to sleep. And maybe it did 1 or 2 nights. And then after that, it didn't quite work, right? And you say, or it just never worked. You see, this person says, that's what works for me. You see, what is it? Well, I pour a saucer of warm milk. You say, okay, warm milk. I heard that. No, I don't drink the warm milk. I dip my elbows in the warm milk. Okay, I'm sorry. What? You're my boss, right? Yep, just telling you, that's what works for me for every night. Old grandmama, she taught me that. An elbow dipped in milk, and sleep is smooth as, soothes like, sleep is smooth as silk, she said. She was like you, Scoot. She had trouble with some of those words. And I say, okay, let me just walk through this. First of all, what's a saucer? Because I've seen them in cartoons, like but I don't know if I own any saucers. It's like somewhere between a plate and a bowl, like a side plate that's like a bowl, right? It's a saucer, Scoots. Okay. Okay, let's move on then. And so you warm the milk, obviously just to somewhere beyond lukewarm, but not too warm. Exactly. To a comforting temperature. And I guess that would be everybody would figure that out on their own, like you say, because everybody has their different way of warming milk. Correct, Scoots. And then you dip your elbow, so you just dip them in there. You don't, I guess it's a saucer, so you can't plunge your elbow into the milk. Correct, I just dip it. And you don't soak your elbow? Like, what's the difference? Like, a dip is like, what's the difference between a dip and a soak? Well, that's a great question. Why don't you sit down and we'll talk about this a little more. Well, I'm in the middle of a podcast intro. I was just talking to the new listeners because that's the point where I lose them and they where some people might already be like, what did I get myself into? Okay, well, that's what you might be asking yourself that when you dip your elbows in milk anyway. You say, okay, well, I was just going to do, this was supposed to be just a quick metaphor. Okay, well, I'll tell you a dip is quick, like a quick metaphor, but you don't have to be, like a soak is long. So it could be, so it depends on my mood. Like, I try not to rush it, so I don't do a quick dip. And you could do this in any milk, right? Because some people might not want to use dairy milk to dip their elbows in. Oh, boy, what a world we live in. There's so many options. You're right. And I do use many kinds of milk. Right. Just not exclusively dairy milk. Correct. I tried oat milk for the first time. I realized that's a popular thing. Right, rice milk, oat milk, almond milk, whatever, any milk. But it has to be labeled milk, in your opinion. Yes, just it is part of it is a combination. It's not just, it's the act of dipping the milk. It's the fact that it's milk. Yeah, so it is all connected. It may, it's part physical and part mental and part, for me, connection to my grandmama. So part spiritual for me. And that works for you. You dip in it could be placebo. I don't know, but it works for me. And I highly recommend dipping your elbows in milk. Okay, thanks so much. That was some imaginary boss of mine, not my recommendation. But we've heard those before, right? Maybe not in such a long, drawn out way at the beginning of a sleep podcast, but you say, that's a conversation we've all had. And so you say, okay, wow, you dip your elbows in milk. Works like a charm. That's what usually they say. It works every time. It's going to change your sleep habits. And you say, okay. And the first time you do it, you might feel a little, especially this one, you feel a little bit ridiculous. And you say, what am I supposed to do? My elbows are covered in milk. He never said to wipe it off or not. You say, okay, oh, of course, I wipe it off with a warm washcloth. You say, okay, great. That makes sense, too. And then then you say, well, if it's a nice ritual or part of a routine, it might be nice. But then you say, well, it doesn't work for me exactly the way I imagined it would. Or you say, well, it's just not for me. I don't know, I'd rather have a nice cup of tea or something than dip my elbows in milk. And I'm being honest, that's what I'm like. I said, go out, sit outside and have some tea and do some light reading. So it's different for everybody. My point was that this podcast is very different. So if you're just doubtful or skeptical, that makes total sense because this is a strange and different show. So just kind of give it a few tries. The other piece of advice I usually give, and this is over 7 years of doing this, is that one, at first, you try to consume the podcast loosely, or maybe on your second or third try. Like, this is a man who has a conversation with himself about dipping his elbows in milk. I think if you say that to yourself, you'll realize the kind of attention you really need to give me, which would be out of focus, fuzzy attention. And if you consume the podcast in kind of that loose way, like sand in your hand, or elbow. You say, after you dip your elbows in it, technically it is elbow milk, I would say. And it'd say, holy cow, what are you going to, let's just move on. But that is elbow milk. And then maybe that causes something at home. You say, dear, if this is the last time I'm going to deal with your elbow milk in the morning, can you imagine being their next door neighbor? You have no idea about any of this elbow milk dipping ritual that this person does. And normally try not to listen in next door. But this last time you hear the partner say, if I have to dip my elbows in milk, if you clean up your elbow milk one last time, that's it. You'd say, holy mackerel, we got to move. Or I got to start listening into these people more often. Or I got to invite myself over there. So those are interesting. I mean, those are things to think about, I guess. What was my point? Oh, just consume this podcast loosely. Only took 12 minutes to get to that point. The second thing is this podcast really isn't here to put you to sleep. It's here to keep you company while you fall asleep. So there's no pressure. That's why the episodes are an hour. It's to give you plenty of time to get comfortable and drift off. And then if you can't sleep, I'm going to be here for you to the very end. The other things that throw people off is the structure of the show. So the show starts off with greeting, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends beyond the binary. Then there's business. That's what keeps the podcast going. Then there's the intro, which is like 12 to 20 minutes long, where I try to explain what the podcast is, and then I go off topic, and then I try to come back to be an on topic. And then there's the episode. And in the episode tonight, it'll be a crossover visit, walking tour of Rome and my memories of Rome. So it's a crossover with the podcast, The Bittersweet Life, and I'll have links to the original episode, and you've probably heard me talk about it at the top of the show, too. So, and then there'll be some thank yous at the end. So there'll be all meandering to keep you company and help you fall asleep. Also, the intro can throw people off because it's 12 to 20 minutes, but the whole idea is it's as part of your bedtime routine. As opposed to elbow milk, you say, okay, I'm going to start my tea. I'm going to start the podcast. I'm going to steep my tea. That's what most regular listeners just start to do. Is kind of build a routine, including the podcast, either before they get into bed or once they're in bed getting comfortable. Though 2% of listeners just start the show at about 20 minutes to skip ahead. So those are most of the things you need to know. I mean, the last thing you need to know is, one, you deserve a good night's sleep, and that's why I really make the show. Is because I want you to get the rest you need and deserve, and that your world will be a better place, our world will be a better place if you get that. And the other side of it is because I've been there, tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep, all those things I deal with. And I do want to say hope, I said at the beginning, because it's like I have been waking up pretty early a lot of times and then trying to figure out what to do about that. And I guess part of it is like having something like this podcast or something else to change the narrative. And for me, I said, okay, I do have to start changing the narrative and doing something else. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go back to reading some Robert Ludlum. And I did that last night, and it was one of those in-between hours where it was just too early to get up, and then I was awake. So I read for an hour, and then I fell back asleep for a few hours, and it was great. So I hope the podcast can provide something like that for you that makes it less lonely and less of a rigmarole. We say, okay, well, at least this is a little bit different. So that's it. That's why I make the show and kind of see how it goes. Like I said, it doesn't work for everybody, but I really hope it works for you. I work hard, I yearn and I strive, and I really want to help you fall asleep. Thanks so much for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we're able to bring this podcast twice a week. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. So I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake. It could be thoughts, things on your mind that you're thinking about, thoughts, feelings, physical sensations. So anything, going through your brain, anything you're feeling in your body, or, where feelings exist kind of in both places and more, or all three. Whatever it is that's keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send my voice across. I'm going to try to create, I forgot. Try to create a safe place, smooth it, pat it, rub it down, and invite you in, or send it your way. Say, signed, sealed, delivered. This safe place is yours. Or it could be, not signed or sealed, just delivered, or sent your way. And the way I do that is I send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. I'm going to go off topic, which I've probably already done in some sense. Senseless banter. Holy moly. Is that it? Yeah, that's a thing, right? Senseless banter. Definitely banter. I think I'm the only person when they say, are you going to put up any bunting this year? I say, I'm sorry, what's that? And they say that those are it's like not a flag, but you kind of, it's those, and I say, no, don't really, I put out some banter. I'm not actually good. I'm only good at bantering at bedtime banter. Have we thought about that before? Bedtime banter. But what I'm going to do, let's see, is, what I'm going to do, send my voice across, go off topic, get mixed up. So I'm doing that right now. All to take your mind off stuff and keep you company as you fall asleep. Now, if you're new, a few pieces of information I'd like you to know. One, if you're doubtful or skeptical or confused, those are totally normal reactions for a new listener. The confusion will remain, but it'll become it'll be diffused and confused. That's like a sleep with me listener. Or I try to diffuse and confuse. I do. I like the way that sounds because it's true, though. But if you're new, it might not seem that way. Because nonsense suffuses this show. And, goofy stuff. But so if you're new, if you are skeptical or doubtful, or you're like, I don't know if this is for me, that's a very, very legitimate and normal reaction. So that's why I want to fill you in on a few things. One, if you can, give the show 2 or 3 tries. And millions of people have said it took 2 or 3 tries to get used to the podcast. So kind of see how it goes. And there's no pressure. You don't have to like the show. It doesn't have to work for you. Just see how it goes. I really do hope it helps you. So if you're doubtful, the other piece is this is a podcast. One of the reasons people are doubtful is because they're really listening and waiting for content. And that's a little bit of I don't think it's irony. But yeah, mine is more like a diffuser. Like when you put something in one of those humidifier diffusers, right? You see, even that confuses me. I say, well, is this just like a humidifier, like a mini humidifier or not? And then you put essential oil in it maybe. And, when you drop the oil in, it's little drops of oil and with some scents, I don't know, probably diffused in there too. And then it diffuses it into the air. I kind of do that with thoughts where you say, okay, at some point, this thought was a flower, in another person's mind or on a piece of paper, this was a flower. This was a thought. It was a beautiful thing or a plant or a stem or, something. And this isn't a negative thing. This is just what the goo that I do is, then for me, I'm more like the mist. So a regular podcast, I would say, okay, well, that's what lemongrass, that's lavender. Oh boy, that's frankincense or whatever. You say, okay, I know what that is. Very clear thoughts, well-formed, short intro, gets to the point. So just like you'd look at a flower, when you're diffusing a flower or whatever, I don't even know what gets diffused or put into the oils. I don't know any of the cold pressed, I think, maybe, or something. But you say, oh, okay. Like, I like looking at flowers. Don't need to look at, I'll look at the mist of a diffused flower smell for a few seconds. About as long as it takes Scooter to say a few seconds. And then I'll move on because it's just mist. It's not bad to look at. But it's not the same as looking at a flower. And you say, Scoots, I don't know if that metaphor would not make any sense in any other context other than your podcast. That's what regular listeners are saying. And I know that didn't make any sense, but it kind of does. It's like comparing the flower to the mist. I'm the mist, without a doubt. And I still smell good. The thing is, I still smell good. Flowers smell great. I still most of the time smell pretty good. So we got that for us. So don't just barely listen. Just like if you're looking at that mist coming out of the humidifier, you say, okay, well, it's okay. Yep. Okay. All right. I'm going to go do something else. In this case, you just kind of you say, okay, I'm just going to kind of barely watch it. I mean, here's a question, because I know people love cat gifs and cat videos. Is there any videos of cats looking at mist, or even is mist out of a diffuser or humidifier, even for a cat? Is it like, yeah, well, what about you got new laser pointers? That would be a normal podcast, and this is a mist. Okay, I think I've over and under explained that enough. So this is a podcast you don't need to listen to. Also, it's not really a podcast to put you to sleep. Even though this is a sleep podcast, it's here to keep you company while you fall asleep. I'm here to take your mind off stuff and be your bore bud, and your bore bae, your bore sib, your bore bestie, your bore cuz, your bore bruh, whatever it is you're comfortable with, and just take your mind off stuff as you drift off. So those are two pieces of information. The third thing that can throw new people off, and I want to give you this because it definitely has the strongest reaction. And if you have a super strong reaction, like I said, you don't have, like, the podcast might not work for you. And I wish it did. But maybe knowing that people have a strong reaction about this will make you feel like there is space for your feelings about this podcast. I want to tell you that. And if there is space for it, you could just maybe see how it goes and then be like, yeah, you know what? It's not for me. But so another thing some people have strong feelings about is the structure of the show, because it's also very different. So show starts off with a greeting. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends beyond the binary. That's greeting everyone and saying, I see you. I care that you get a good night's sleep and you're welcome here. Then there's business. So just like the greeting is the door, coming through the door, you say, okay, what do you got here? And that's how we keep the show coming out two times a week for free, the business. That's like maybe 2 to 6 minutes or something. I don't know. And then there's an intro that's around 12 to 20 minutes. And that's what we're like maybe halfway or more through, where it's not business. It's just me kind of introducing the podcast. For a new listener, it actually serves two functions, probably like within a spectrum of limitless functions. But if I had to put labels on it, on the further edges of the spectrum, I'd say there's two parts of the intro spectrum. One is new listeners. It kind of introduces you to the podcast and what to expect. And you kind of get an idea that I can't get to the point. This is like very misty, very diffused. I'm diffused and confused. That might be one of my next autobiographies that I'll never write. And you say, wow, you're not dazed and confused. No, I'm diffused and confused. Yeah. And I'm trying to think of other words that rhyme with it, but I should probably move on. And then... So, what was I saying? I forgot. I'm not kidding. So the intro is to introduce you if you're new, and you kind of see how it goes. But as you become a regular listener, and what I've discovered over doing this for 7 years is that the intro allows a regular listener to either get ready for bed or get comfortable in bed. or, it's part of their wind down routine, wherever they are, wherever you are that you're listening. And that may change over time, whether you're new or you're a regular listener, or you're a daytime listener looking for a break. So that's like another thing. It's just kind of see how it goes. But that's the intro. It goes on and on and on. Now, 2% of people skip the intro, start the show at about 20 minutes, 18 to 20 minutes, it seems like most people do. And then they just start listening from there. So you could get to the point where you say, well, I just like to skip the intro. So then after the intro will be business. That's kind of part of, again, how we keep the show free, is our partners there. And then there's an episode. Tonight it'll be our modular episodic series about otters and things. And you can listen to that in any order, but it'll just be a nice meandering bedtime story. So that's the structure of the show. You know what? Other thing I forgot to tell you is this. I think I told you. The podcast really isn't here to put you to sleep. The end of the show ends with thank you. So that's the structure of the show. But yeah, this is a podcast you don't need to listen to, and there's no pressure to fall asleep. That's kind of how it's structured that way. So if you can't sleep, here's the good news. Or if it takes you a while to fall asleep, or if you need a break during the day, or you're waking up, is the structure of the show is kind of built for that. You say, okay, some people listen to the episode in chunks. Other people listen. Everybody figures out their own way. But it's like, if you can't sleep, then it's like, okay, I got the intro to look forward to, then the story, then the thank yous. Or if you set your sleep timer for like 30 minutes or something, you say, okay, well, if I wake up, I could just hit play again, and it'll start at wherever Scoots left off. Neither one of us, Scoots or I, will know what he's talking about. So that's kind of the structure of the show. And that's, I think, the most important things for new listeners to know, other than this, which is that the reason I make the show is because you deserve a good night's sleep. You deserve some rest. And if it's at all possible, I'd love to provide that for you. So I hope it does. And the reason I care is, the world will be a better place. Your world will be a better place if you get some rest and you get the rest that you deserve. But also because I've been there. I was there last night, or like somewhere between the night and the morning. So I know how it feels. And if I can help interrupt that or take your mind off of that or make it a little bit less intense, it's my honor. So that's why I make a show. That's kind of how people listen and just kind of see how it goes. And if you're a regular listener, I'm so glad I could be here for you. And I'm so glad you're here to be here to kind of barely listen to me. It is such a pleasure for me to make this show. And even though this is like a middle of the intro or whatever, like I just keep coming back to like how much I love making this show, how much I love telling bedtime stories. And how lucky I feel to be able to do it and have it be of service. It really is an honor. I say that, but I mean it. Like those words have huge meaning for me. And the idea that you deserve a good night's sleep and I want you to feel seen and welcome is really important to me. And I can't accomplish that all the time. I stumble just like everybody else. But I hope... we could create a space for that. Just like if the podcast isn't for you or you don't like it, I'm trying to grow and create space for that too and say, hey, we'll just see how it goes. And then, check out another sleep podcast or something else. Like maybe Rick Steves or something, that's like one that keeps coming back up. So I think that's it. I'm really glad you're here. I really hope and yearn and I work hard and strive because I really want to help you fall asleep. So thanks again for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we're able to make this podcast free for everybody. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots, and this is a Tuck You In message. I don't know if you've been listening to episode after episode, or you just woke up, you're drifting in and out, but this is also a reminder the show is always here for you, as it has been since 2013. But I need to talk, just you and me. We got to talk for a minute if you're listening to me and hearing me right now. And you might have heard me talking about this before, but I do want to spell this out, that Sleep With Me all of the funding to make Sleep With Me, everything that pays all of our bills and the costs of producing the show, 99% of that comes from listeners. We don't get any funding from outside sources or other entertainment companies or companies, companies like music streaming companies or video streaming companies. We don't have any investors, and there's no other like secret pipeline of support for Sleep With Me or almost every other podcast either. We get some money from sponsors that are direct response, meaning they base their sponsorship on the listeners that support them. A tiny bit from automated ads. But the majority of what keeps the show going comes from the people who get the most out of the podcast. Super listeners, ideally. And I don't know if you're a super listener. I don't know if you already made the decision you're not in a position to support the show. That's okay. Or you made the decision you're not going to support the show. That's okay, too. You could still take a part in this coming right up here. But if you didn't make one of those two decisions, we need support. Support from the people who benefit the most from the podcast. People that fall asleep fast. People that listen all night long. If we don't get more all-night listeners and people who fall asleep fast, the podcast won't be around. We also need support from people that listen 3-4 nights a week. People who have listened for a year or longer. And I'm just wondering if you're in one of those groups. The podcast has changed your life for the better, and it continues to change your life for the better. And I'm trying to lay out the stakes without using kind of fear or stress, because while that is effective, right? The last round this month, I tried to use a more positive message, and we actually lost subscribers. But it's so tiring for me. It's almost like I'd rather lose the podcast than kind of keep having to do this sales pitch and say, well, if the podcast is going to go away, if that's the only way to get people to support the show, I don't know, it's really, really not fun for me. So instead of, the stakes are there. If you haven't decided and the podcast has changed your life for the better, the stakes are, we need some of you, maybe it's you, to support the show, or it won't be around. But instead of focusing on that, I want to talk about rooting, about sending positive energy, rooting in the deep dark night. I've been talking about this in the intro for years. And that's what I believe in. I believe in rooting for other people to get a good night's sleep. And maybe you're here, maybe you stuck around because someone out there, somebody who was struggling in the deep dark night just like you, was rooting for you. And you could feel that welcome when you got here. Or maybe you're one of those people who roots for other people who are struggling in the deep dark night. And here's what a couple people who did sign up in the last round of messaging said. Tiffany Y said, just because you can get something for free doesn't mean you should. I know if I have trouble for sleeping, I just have to listen. I'll be out in no time. That is definitely worth a few dollars a month. And Michelle F. said, this show is like cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia and a sleep aid all in one. I also consider it an art form, and I believe in compensating artists for their work. Timothy T. said, I'm a full-time caregiver, and the person I care for discovered your podcast, and we really like the ad-free content. It makes it easier to listen to. And then John R., who said, I'm a super listener, said, I had no idea how urgent it was. I'd been meaning to support the show, but I just never took the time. I realize now I've been unintentionally voting now. So I subscribed and with feeling. So what I'm asking is, are you the one person everybody else is rooting for? Like, just to overcome whatever it is, putting it off or saying it doesn't matter, it matters, or somebody else is going to do it, or are you the person we're rooting for to support the show? Now, it's okay if you're not. Maybe you're rooting for yourself to get a good night's sleep as soon as this episode, maybe you're an all-night listener. Maybe you woke up and you're looking forward to falling asleep soon. If you are a super listener, we did build Sleep With Me Plus with you in mind. Ad-free episodes, ad-free story-only episodes, tons of different cool stuff. So I don't know if you're rooting for yourself. Think about supporting the show on Sleep With Me Plus just so you get a better listening experience. But maybe you're rooting for somebody else out there. Maybe it's somebody this month, which we're rooting for is people going back to school or who are impacted by the back to school season. It could be teachers, it could be parents, it could be students, it could be anybody dealing with increased traffic. Whatever it is, this beginning of this transitional season affects a lot of people. And we're rooting for all those people, whether they listen to the show or not. Or whether they're a super listener or a cat. They say, well, I just needed to get through the first couple of weeks of school. We're rooting for all of them to get a good night's sleep. So you could root for those people. You could root for someone whose sleep struggles are just like yours, or you could receive the rooting, because I hope you can feel it right now. I'm rooting for you, but a bunch of other people are rooting for you right now across the world. But if you're the one we're rooting for that's like, yeah, I've been putting it off. Yes, Sleep With Me continues to change my life for the better. We're rooting for you to support the show. So they'll be around, not just for you, for every other person we're rooting for. You could do that at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus, because we need support, right? And you might be thinking someone else will do it. But what if, as has been said in the last couple months, time after time, what if that someone else is you, right? You're the someone else. Well, if you're that person, we're cheering you on here. Don't let that resistance, and I know what the resistance feels like. I put it off. I say it doesn't matter. I say I'll do it tomorrow. Then I criticize myself. But just do it and see how it feels. And again, you could always cancel during the free trial or cancel after a month or two. But I'm so proud of the show. And this is how I want to try to get support for the show. If it doesn't work, I don't know what I'll do. But I'm going to keep trying this more positive but honest message where everybody can participate. And everybody can participate in giving and receiving. But it is like kind of like a needle in a haystack that we're looking for now. But we got to find it. So I don't know if you're the needle in the haystack, or you're somebody snoozing in the haystack, or maybe you're a horse having a hay snack. I don't know. But thanks so much for listening, and good night.